platform for buying and selling various financial assets for individuals, businesses, and governments. However, their positive impacts are more significant in countries with adequate financial infrastructure and supportive regulations. In developing countries like Nigeria, challenges such as lack of liquidity, information imbalances, and political instability remain major obstacles. These markets are also expected to facilitate efficient capital allocation and create opportunities for wealth creation. Joining us in the studio is Oluwaseyi Odufuwa, MD and CEO of Capital Plus Limited and a financial expert. Good morning. It's good to have you join us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Right. There'll be those who will be wondering what we mean by sustainable financial markets and all of it. If you could just break it down for a few viewers before we move into other issues.
Okay, so when you look at sustainable finance in the market, we look at the long-term plan for sustainability in the economy as a whole. If you look at it, Mr. President, in the last 1 year, has hammered on the fact that Nigeria needs to move up to a 1 trillion economy
yes.
In the next 6 to 7 years. That's for 2030. And for somebody like me, I feel that it is quite achievable.
Not ambitious, as some have said.
It's very achievable.
Right.
So many schools of thought will feel that as we speak right now with the current trend in the economic trajectory, that may not be possible. But for me, as an analyst of almost 20 years in the business, as an investment banker, I feel very strongly in my heart that it is very achievable in the next 4 or 5 years if we decide to follow some economic line. When I say line now, I mean both monetary policies and fiscal policy rejig. We can achieve it. And I could give you some policy directions too. And
absolutely.
I feel
that's the essence for this conversation.
That I feel that we need to look at to be able to achieve that. Presently, as we speak, our economy is growing at the rate of about 3.2% in terms of GDP growth, as against 2.5% year on year in 2023. And as we speak, what is the size of our economy right now? Our GDP presently is about $253 billion as we speak, and we want to move it up to 1 trillion.
1 trillion.
Which I say is very, very achievable. What was our budget benchmark for 2024? Our budget benchmark was about 3.76% in terms of growth. And presently, we are doing about 3.1%, which is not too bad. But in my own postulation, I feel that we are moving very slowly. And to achieve a $1 trillion economy, we need to grow at a minimum of about 6%. Yes, we need to grow at a minimum of about 6%. And how do we achieve it? I'll give you 5 or 6 policy directions. The first one is inflation.
Right.
We need to curb inflation. Presently, you will notice that in the last 2 years, inflation has not dropped. It just dropped it keeps rising. But in 2 years, inflation just dropped to about 33.4% in the last 2 years. And if you look at it well too, for headline inflation, about 40 to 41% of headline inflation consists of food inflation. Good. So for food inflation, if we can tackle food insecurity, then we will have solved inflationary trends and drop it down to about 28 or 29%. And so that's a challenge. So for inflation, it plays a major role. If inflation drops, we give more room for our targets to be achieved. Number 2, I have 1 or 2 more to
go ahead.
Number two, we need to look at our revenue to debt servicing. As at the time of the last government, Nigeria was using about 98% of our revenue to service debt. So we couldn't do anything. The economy was so stifled, and there was no expansion. There was no capital expenditure in any form. And so, as we speak now, the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has reduced it to about 68%.
Yes.
And currently, as we speak, it's about 63%. So there's a trajectory that is being reduced consistently. And that's one of the beautiful things. And I believe strongly, IMF standard is about 22.5%. That's your revenue to debt servicing. That's the standard. And I believe that with the current trajectory of this government, we believe strongly that as they reduce this percentage more, there's more funds that is being freed for capital development. Right. And once we have more capital development, you know, it translates to more spending. And more spending increases GDP.
Right. Before we move to the next point, we need to quickly go on a break. Okay. When we return, we'll continue the conversation.
All right.
Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Before we went on the break, we have our guest, Oluwaseyi Odufuwa, in the studio telling us how we can move the economy from what it is right now to what this current administration is forecasting, a 1 trillion naira economy by 2030, something sustainable. And before we went to the break, you were telling us some pointers addressing matters of inflation, inflation driven by food insecurity, if we can tackle that. And then you also went to the point of our debt servicing, how it is that IMF standard is 21%, 22.5%. But so far we've been able to reduce to about 63%. Yes, to about 63%. So the journey still continues for us. Now the third point. Okay,
so the third point is our oil production. Right. We knew that before now, if you look at the trend from 900, 1.2 million, presently it hovers between 1.5 to 1.4 million barrels a day. What is OPEC cut? OPEC cut is about 2 million barrels a day. How long have we made that? Probably during Jonathan's period.
But the president is looking in that direction.
That's what I'm going to. So yes. The president of Bola Ahmed Tinubu is taking strides, and we encourage him to hit that 2 million mark. Once we hit that 2 million mark, though we'll talk about insecurity as one of the major bane as advice to this government. And so if Nigeria can hit our 2 million mark, that means we'll add another 600,000 barrels production on a daily basis. And let's pick Bonny Light's average price of maybe it's about $79 per barrel now, but let's pick at $70 per barrel. It means that on a monthly basis, Nigeria will have FX to the tune of over $1 billion on a monthly basis. So more funds add to more spending. More spending increases GDP. As simple as that. That's right. Another one we would like to look at is that
how many more would you like to look at?
Maybe two more.
Quickly. Yes.
So because of time. I would like us to look at GDP rebasing too. You know, the last time Nigeria did a rebasing was in 2014, which was in Jonathan's period. And in 2014, our economy was about 270 billion. After rebasing by MBS, it moved to about 510 billion. And World Bank standard is that you can rebase every 5 years. But in the last 10 years, we are not rebased. And so we believe strongly that, and we are hearing feelers, that MBS is working on something like that. And so if NBS rebases, Nigeria's economy should not, and the last time it was rebased, it was about 90% after rebasing. So if we do a rebasing now, the trajectory is very clear that Nigeria can hit a $1 trillion economy. Let's look at agro-export too. As we speak now, our GDP, agro-export is about 16.8% of GDP. And so Nigeria has been a mono economy for too long. So if you look at the agri sector, we should produce what we eat, we should also produce for export. And so if we increase very significantly at that trajectory, there is no way our $1 trillion economy will achieve it. Well, and also look at the 70,000 naira minimum wage for Nigerians. We look at it on paper and we feel that it's a thing that yes, but the truth is that if every state can domesticate it and ensure that they pay, I'm telling you, it increases spending for Nigerians. And it is not just the 70,000. If you're earning 250 before now, it increases. If you earn 2 million, it increases. And so it increases spending,
all right.
In the local economy.
We'll definitely try to, within the little time that we have, x-ray some of the things that you actually threw up. They're actually very fine, postulations, so to speak. Allow me to use that word. But if you look at Nigeria's Vision 2030, it seeks to reduce, just like you said, dependency on oil and then diversify the economy. But we see that the slow pace of the diversification is something that we've been battling in this country. Diversifying to agriculture. You didn't mention technology, and also have manufacturing. So what role do you think the capital market can play in ensuring that we have to restructure or strengthen or to better support the diversification agenda of this current administration? Okay, so
I know very correctly that the capital market has been playing so much role in ensuring that we achieve our goals for 2030, Vision 2030. There has been so many expansionary programs by SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. Yes, so many expansionary, led by Mr. Gama, who is somebody that is very seasoned. There has been so many expansionary programs, and we have the green bonds. We have so many innovations on technology, like you just mentioned, and also if you look at in the last 2 months, about 6 banks, tier 1 banks, have been able to raise like 1.4 trillion in the market, and that's a giant stride even for the Nigerian capital market too. And so many of the other banks too are still going to come to the market. And so 1.4 trillion expands the economy more. And immediately these shares are being allotted. You will see movements, positive movements for buy and sell. And any of these movements will translate directly to growth for the economy. And so many sensitization advocacies by SEC for capital market operators to continue to toe that line of they encourage us every day to come to the market, bring innovations to the market. Let's see how we can partner together. And there's room for every CMO, technology, bonds, IPOs, right issue, on agriculture, on green bonds, on anywhere, even REITs too, real estate investment trust scheme. The market is open. The support is there for back end for any of the CMO that is willing to bring anything in terms of supporting the economy for Vision 2030.
But there are two critical issues. One you mentioned earlier, which has to do with insecurity, that anyone in business will tell you has to be addressed, be it food security or security matters itself. And then there's also the matter of climate. These are two major challenges that can hamper this move. No matter what we put in place, you cannot stop the climate. It must be based on what you put in place to addressing it. But from your perspective, how do we address these issues critically on our way to hitting the 1 trillion naira?
Thank you. It's a brilliant question, most especially that of insecurity. Let's use Nigeria as our own trajectory. Insecurity has been a very strong bane. It's a cankerworm in the fabrics of our economic growth. Insecurity cuts across all. I'll mention 3 things. You've mentioned one now, agriculture, oil production. And there's another one that is critical that we are not looking at all, which is night economy. Oh, beautiful, night economy. Look at oil and gas, for instance. if we can produce up to 2 million barrels a day, 600,000 barrels as deficit right now will give us over $1 billion every month. That's a lot to free up FX. And what are the challenges? Look at the refineries. Every day, every month, there are new dates for production. It hasn't materialized. Dangote is out 650,000 barrels a day, which is sustainable. And we emphasize also that pressure on Naira will reduce within a very short period of time because of local production and the crude swap that is arranged with Dangote refinery. But if government can fix insecurity in this area, now look at agriculture. 80% of agri produce is up north. So we want to call on our governors too to become ingenious and use technology for farming.
That's right.
As we speak now, technology in farming has produced too much. I mentioned about 16.8% agro-export in total GDP. So if we can concentrate more on arable land and use technology to till these farms, each state concentrate on what your people will eat and also keep some for export, it's going to help very strongly. I mentioned something on night economy.
Yes.
In the US, night economy is about 6% of their GDP. An economy that is over $27 trillion. In the UK, night economy is about 5%. And it gives about 1 million jobs on a regular basis. In Nigeria, we don't have night economy. And it's something we should try to look at.
I think we have, but we don't have to the,
No,
level.
Yeah.
It's almost there. Night economy can only be in Lagos. And even in Lagos, it's only about 30%. In Abuja, maybe another 25%. Which other states?
But matter of fact, some of those that are providing this night economy, for instance, nightclubs and bars and all of that, some of them are being closed down for noise pollution and all of that.
Well, you have to follow rules and regulations. You know, if you have a house beside a club now, which should be a residential area, government should fight for you. And so we won't say government is not doing a good job. Government is doing a good job. But what we are saying is that...
Before you move further with the night economy, we need to quickly go on a break again.
Okay.
When we return, we'll continue the conversation.
All right,
Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're still talking about sustainable economy and our drive towards 2030, 1 trillion naira economy as it is. And we still have Oluwaseyi Odufuwa in the studio talking with us. And you were speaking on a particular point, talking about the night economy.
Yes.
And we're having a conversation behind the scene, talking about how challenging it is, especially with regards to the security situation. And you were trying to perhaps give a suggestion to government on addressing that, and then also the matter of climate.
Okay, so for the night economy, I want to postulate that government should do more on insecurity. It's the bane of everything that we face as we speak. And like I postulated, it's a cankerworm in our financial fabric as we speak. So if we can solve insecurity, at least to a barest minimum, so many things will work the way it should be.
So many steps the government has taken. There are those who will tell you the government has taken several steps for instance, the farmers. The government has said that security personnel should follow them to the farm so that they be able to farm, especially in the northeast. And then this morning in the papers, we were seeing some arrangement between Nigeria and Italy looking to buy more fighter jets, so to speak. And then other steps that has been taken. There's also the matter of state police. Aren't these areas that perhaps could give us the needed results? Okay,
so I feel that our approach should be both kinetic and non-kinetic approach to insecurity. It's bedeviled us for the last 20 years very strongly, most especially up north. And the north too is important in the economic fabrics of this country. It's very, very important because most of our governors, as we speak, are not taking that giant stride in ensuring that their states produce. There's no land now, because of technology, there's no land down that cannot produce anything. We've seen areas where they produce with only water, no soil, and they produce vegetables for food to feed. In 2 weeks, it grows. So what are governors doing? Look at what Mr. President has done. Major things he has done that people are not looking at, but rather they concentrate on the federal side alone. He removed subsidy. There was more, about 70 to 80% increase in monthly FAC allocations to governors and local government. See what he has done again on local government autonomy. He's the only president that has taken the bull by the horn to go to the Supreme Court and ensure that funds get to the grassroots directly.
That's right.
So if he has done that, he has done so much. And what he has done is that he has given those governors those powers. So the governors have been getting double allocation.
Yes. Because of our time. The matter of climate, I want you to quickly touch on that before we let you go.
So for climate, I love what, behind the scene, what the gentleman has said, that we need to look inwards first, look at ourselves before we look. Climate is natural. And when we talk of natural things, there are things that is beyond man. We can't plan for climate change. We can always plan for it. Every year, there's a climate conference that happens every year. And Nigeria attends. How well are we, going by the rules to prevent climate disasters? Nigeria has been a stable environment for years, unlike those perilous other countries. And so I think before climate change, we need to look inward to ensure that various agencies that are attached to that do what is needful to prevent disasters. Look at what happened recently, where we lost over 200 people up north lives because of a dam that broke. So many people will feel that it was flooding, but it was man-made.
Even the cemetery felt the impact.
Sir?
Even the cemetery felt
the impact. It could have been prevented. So since it happened, how many heads has rolled? Nothing has happened. We've not heard anything. And so we need to look inwards first to tackle those challenges. Then the natural disasters can come and can happen. What are the preventive mechanisms that we have in place to be able to tackle such?
All right, we'll leave the conversation here. But we must thank you, Oluwaseyi Odufuwa, MD and CEO of Capital Plus Limited, financial expert. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Moving on, after the break, we analyze the midterm scorecard of the governor of Ekiti State and what more residents of the